My stepmom pushed me down the stairs and faked my suicide to steal my inheritance. I found her journal admitting everything at my own birthday party. Now she's in prison and her perfect daughter just helped me put her there. The mug said, "World's best bonus daughter," in loopy pink letters. Linda handed it to me at breakfast 3 days after my 13th birthday, the morning after my mom's funeral. My dad was already at the hospital pulling a double shift. He'd been doing that a lot since mom got sick. Linda smiled at me across the table, that Pinterest perfect smile she wore in all her Instagram posts, and said, "I know I can never replace your mother, but I'm here for you." I should have seen it then. The way her eyes didn't match her smile. But I was 13 and grieving and desperate for someone to tell me everything would be okay. Mom died from cancer. That's what everyone said. Stage 4, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral, the kind of timeline that doesn't leave room for questions. She'd been in and out of the hospital, treatments that left her weak and sick, and then one day she just didn't wake up. Dad remarried 8 months later. Looking back, I realize now how fast that was. At the time, I just felt grateful someone was making dinner again. Linda seemed perfect at first. She had these elaborate meal plans printed from food blogs, color-coded charts on the fridge tracking our nutrition. She'd post long captions on Facebook about being blessed to have a bonus daughter, about blended family journeys, about grace and patience. Her friends would comment with heart emojis. My dad's coworkers would tell him how lucky he was. But the second his car left the driveway for his night shift at the hospital, Linda's face would change. "Time for your chores," she'd say, appearing in my doorway like she'd been waiting. The Pinterest board stayed online, but the reality was me on my hands and knees scrubbing baseboards with a toothbrush while she stood over me, critiquing every stroke. My knees would bruise purple-blue from the hardwood floors. She'd make me redo sections if she found a single streak. "Chloe would never do such sloppy work," she'd say. Chloe was her daughter from a previous marriage, the one who visited on weekends. Chloe had perfect blonde hair and perfect grades, and a perfect smile just like Linda's. I was the dark-haired disappointment who couldn't even clean properly. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that I was being dramatic, that lots of kids had chores. I didn't tell Dad because he looked so tired all the time and Linda was always sweet to him. She'd greet him at the door with a kiss, have his favorite meal waiting, ask about his patience. I'd sit at dinner watching her perform, wondering if I was crazy for seeing something else underneath. The night everything changed started like any other. Dad kissed my forehead on his way out, told me to get a good night's sleep. Linda waited exactly 3 minutes after his car disappeared down the street. I heard her footsteps on the stairs. She didn't knock. "Time for your chores." I was sitting at my desk with my biology textbook open. I had a huge test the next day, the kind that could tank my grade if I failed. I'd been studying for 2 hours already and still felt unprepared. For the first time, I found the courage to say no. "I have a test tomorrow. Can I do extra chores on Saturday instead?" The words came out smaller than I'd intended, but I'd said them. I'd set a boundary like my school counselor kept encouraging during our grief sessions. I felt proud of myself, sitting up straighter in my chair. Linda went completely still. Her face froze in this weird blank expression, like a computer buffering. Then she smiled. "Of course, dear. You need your rest. Study well." She closed my door gently. I stared at it for a full minute, waiting for the catch, but nothing happened. I texted my best friend Sarah. I actually stood up to Linda, and she just accepted it. Maybe things are getting better. Sarah sent back a string of celebration emojis. I went to bed at 11 feeling hopeful for the first time in months. Maybe Linda and I could figure this out. Maybe we could actually become the blended family from her Instagram posts. I woke up at the bottom of our stairs. There were lights. Bright lights shining in my eyes. Voices echoing weird and distant. Someone was sobbing. This awful dramatic wailing. I couldn't move my neck without lightning shooting down my spine. My back felt wrong, like something had shifted that wasn't supposed to shift. "Don't move, sweetie. You're okay. You're going to be okay." A paramedic's face swam into focus above me. Young guy, maybe mid-20s, with kind eyes. Behind him, I could see Linda on the landing, her hands over her face, her whole body shaking with sobs. "She must have been sleepwalking," Linda was saying between gasps. "She's been so depressed since her mother died." I found her at the bottom of the stairs. I don't know how long she was there. Oh God, I should have heard something. I should have. "I don't sleepwalk," I tried to say, but my voice came out scratchy and wrong. The paramedic leaned closer. "Don't try to talk." "We're taking you to the hospital." I wanted to tell them I'd been in bed. I wanted to tell them Linda was lying. But everyone was moving so fast, loading me onto a stretcher, and my head felt fuzzy and wrong. I caught Linda's eyes for just a second as they wheeled me past. She was still crying, but underneath the tears, I swear I saw her smile. At the hospital, Linda pulled the ER doctor aside. I was lying on a gurney in a hallway because it was a busy night, but I could hear every word through the thin curtain. "She's been having such a hard time since her mother passed. There have been previous attempts at self-harm." Linda's voice was low, concerned, the voice of a worried parent. I didn't want to say anything in front of the paramedics, but I think this might have been deliberate. My entire body went cold despite the heated hospital blanket. "I don't have any evidence of self-harm on initial examination," the doctor said. He sounded skeptical, which gave me hope. "Check her arms." "Upper arms, where she can hide it." I heard footsteps. The curtain pulled back. The doctor was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes. He looked at me with something like pity. Linda appeared behind him, and in her hand were photos on her phone. The scratches were from her cat. Princess was this horrible Persian that Linda let claw me whenever I had to feed it. The scratches on my upper arms were from last week when I'd tried to give Princess her medication and she'd freaked out. I'd shown Dad, and he'd said to just wear long sleeves until they healed. Now Linda was showing them to the doctor like evidence. "She's been withdrawn," Linda continued. "Not eating properly. Isolating from friends. All the classic signs. I've been trying to get her father to take it seriously, but he works such long hours." She trailed off, letting the implication hang. That Dad was neglecting me. That I was falling apart, and nobody was helping. The doctor's face shifted from skeptical to concerned. He started asking me questions about depression, about suicidal thoughts, about whether I wanted to hurt myself. I tried to explain about the test, about Linda, about how I never sleepwalk, but with every word I could see him deciding I was in denial. Traumatized teen who won't admit she tried to kill herself. Classic case. They admitted me for observation. Linda stayed by my bedside playing the devoted stepmother. She held my hand when Dad arrived still in his scrubs, eyes wild with panic. She was the one who calmly explained to him what had happened, what the doctors suspected, what treatment they were recommending. Dad looked at me like I was a stranger, like his daughter had disappeared and been replaced by this broken thing he didn't recognize. "Why didn't you tell me you were feeling this bad?" His voice cracked. "I'm not," I started, but Linda squeezed my hand. Hard. Her nails dug into my palm. "Denial is part of the process," she said gently. "The doctors explained this. We just need to support her." The fall messed up my back bad. They did x-rays, MRIs, all the scans. I developed scoliosis from the impact, some kind of structural damage the doctors said would require physical therapy and maybe surgery down the line. The pain was constant, this deep ache that made it hard to sit still, hard to focus on anything. Linda used it as an excuse to isolate me from everyone. She pulled me out of school, telling the administration I needed time to recover both physically and mentally. She'd homeschool me, she said. She had a teaching certificate from before Chloe was born. The school counselor I'd been seeing for grief? Linda canceled those appointments, saying she'd found me a better therapist. That therapist never materialized. My friends texted constantly at first. Sarah wanted to visit, but Linda would tell them I was sleeping or not feeling well, or that the doctors recommended limited stimulation. Eventually the texts slowed down, then stopped. Dad started working even more hours. I realize now that Linda encouraged it. She'd mention how expensive my medical bills were, how they needed to save for potential surgery, how she could handle things at home. He'd leave at 6 in the morning and come home at midnight. On his days off, Linda would plan activities that kept them busy. Wine tastings, day trips, adult time. I was alone with her. The chores got worse. She'd wake me at 5 in the morning to clean the kitchen. My back would spasm from standing too long, and she'd tell me I was being dramatic. That the doctors said movement was good for recovery. She'd make me reorganize closets, scrub bathrooms, wax floors. If I moved too slowly because of pain, she'd dock my phone privileges or my dinner. She told Dad the pain was all in my head, psychological, stemming from unresolved grief. She'd printed articles about psychosomatic symptoms and left them on his desk. When I'd cry from muscle spasms, she'd tell Dad I was being manipulative, seeking attention. He believed her. Because why wouldn't he? She was the caring stepmother who'd stepped up when I was at my lowest. I was the troubled teen who'd thrown herself down the stairs. Except I hadn't. I started having nightmares about that night. In the dreams, I'd wake up to someone standing over my bed. I'd feel hands on my shoulders. The sensation of falling. But I could never see a face. I'd wake up sweating, my back screaming, and Linda would be there with water and pain medication, playing the concerned parent. For my 18th birthday, Linda announced she was throwing me a huge healing celebration. "You've come so far," she said at breakfast, Dad nodding along. "We need to honor your journey." I didn't want a party. I wanted to leave. I'd been accepted to 3 colleges, all out of state, all with scholarships that would cover most of my costs. But Linda had convinced Dad I wasn't ready, that I needed another year at home to stabilize, that rushing into college would be too much stress. My escape route had been blocked. The party was Linda's production. She hired a professional photographer, the kind who did lifestyle shoots for her mommy blog. She made a slideshow set to inspirational music, showing my journey from troubled teen to healing young adult. She invited all our relatives, Dad's coworkers, people from church. She gave a speech. Standing in our living room with 50 people watching, Linda talked about how hard it had been caring for me through my difficulties, how she'd sacrificed her own career and well-being to be there through the dark times, how proud she was that I'd chosen life, chosen recovery, chosen to accept her love even when it was hard. Everyone applauded. My aunt was crying. Dad stood next to her looking proud, his arm around her waist. I sat in the chair they'd decorated with balloons and felt something crack inside me. This wasn't a birthday party. This was a performance. Linda was establishing her narrative, making sure everyone saw her as the devoted stepmother who'd saved the broken girl. I needed air. I mumbled something about the bathroom and slipped away while Linda was accepting hugs and congratulations. But instead of going upstairs, I went to her office. The door was usually locked, but today, in all the chaos, she'd left it open. Her desk was neat, obsessively organized. Color-coded folders, labeled bins, everything in its place. I didn't know what I was looking for. Evidence, maybe. Proof that I wasn't crazy. I found it. There were papers on her desk about becoming my medical proxy. Official forms, mostly filled out, waiting for signatures. With medical proxy status, she'd have control over my healthcare decisions, my insurance, my benefits. I'd turn 18 in a few hours, but if these forms went through first, she'd maintain control. Next to them was a stack of letters. Unopened envelopes with my grandmother's return address. My mom's mom, who I hadn't seen since the funeral. I opened one with shaking hands. "My dearest girl, I've tried calling, but your father says you don't want to see me. Please know I'm still here. I'm trying to get custody, or at least visitation rights. My lawyer says it's complicated since you're almost 18, but I won't give up. I love you, Grandma." The letter was dated 6 months ago. There were at least 20 more in the stack. Linda had been intercepting them, had convinced Dad that Grandma was toxic, that contact would set back my recovery. And Dad, exhausted and guilty and desperate to believe someone knew what they were doing, had gone along with it. Everything clicked into place. The fall, the isolation, the medical proxy. Linda needed everyone to see her as my devoted caretaker, so when she took control of my benefits, my inheritance, nobody would question it. Mom had life insurance, a trust fund set up for my college. Linda needed access to it, and she needed me dependent and believed to be unstable to justify her control. This wasn't care. This was a long con. I kept searching. In the back of a filing cabinet, hidden under old tax returns, I found Mom's journal. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. The leather was worn, the pages filled with Mom's handwriting. I flipped to entries from her last months, and one passage made my blood run cold. "If anything happens to me, protect our daughter from those who would use her pain for their gain. I know what happens to grieving children when the wrong people see opportunity. Guard her inheritance. Trust no one who appears too quickly, who has answers too perfect. I've seen this pattern before in my nursing days. Keep her safe." Below that, Mom had written information about a trust fund she'd set up specifically for my college. Account numbers, the name of her lawyer. A business card was paper-clipped to the page. Mom had known. She'd seen something. Had Linda been in the picture even before Mom died? Had she been planning this for that long? I heard footsteps on the stairs. The party was still going, but someone was coming up. I shoved the journal under my shirt, grabbed my phone, and hid in the bathroom. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might explode. I had to document this. I had to get evidence. Over the next hour, while the party continued downstairs, I moved through that house like a ghost. I photographed every document. I found Chloe in the guest room scrolling through her phone, and through the crack in the door, I heard her on a call. Once she signs the medical proxy, we can finally access everything. Mom says we'll be set for years. This is the big one, way better than the last guy. Chloe's voice was casual, bored, like she was discussing grocery shopping. I recorded it on my phone. I found more in Linda's office. Printed emails to lawyers asking about accessing my trust fund. Notes about the medical proxy timeline. And in a locked desk drawer, I managed to jimmy open with a bobby pin. I found newspaper clippings. 3 different families. 3 different kids who'd been in my exact situation. Sick parent, quick remarriage, injured child, isolated teen, disappeared money. Linda had kept them like trophies. My mom's lawyer's business card was still in my pocket. I snuck into the bathroom and called from Sarah's phone, which she'd let me that morning for the party. Linda monitored my phone constantly, but she didn't know about Sarah's. Melissa Chun. How can I help you? My voice cracked. My name is Emma. Your card was in my mom's journal. Rachel Thompson was my mom. I think my stepmother is trying to steal my inheritance, and I have evidence. Can you come to 447 Maple Street right now? There's a party. Bring the police. There was a pause. Then, I remember your mother. She was very specific about protecting you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Lock yourself in a bathroom and don't come out until you hear me identify myself. I stayed in that bathroom, sitting on the cold tile floor, while the party continued below. I could hear Linda's laugh, bright and fake. Dad's voice telling work stories. Relatives singing happy birthday. When the doorbell rang, I heard Linda answer. Then I heard Melissa's voice, clear and firm. I'm here regarding the estate of Rachel Thompson. I have a warrant to review certain documents and I'm accompanied by police officers. The house went silent. I came down the stairs slowly, my back screaming with every step. Everyone was frozen. Linda stood by the door, her perfect hostess smile wavering. Behind Melissa were 2 uniformed officers and my grandmother. Grandma saw me and started crying. Linda tried to play innocent. She smiled at the officers, explained this was all a misunderstanding, that I was troubled and confused. But Melissa pulled out papers. They had warrants based on my phone call and the evidence I'd sent from Sarah's phone. They'd been building a case against Linda for months, tracking her through her previous cons. Turns out she'd done this before. Not once. Not twice. For times that they could prove. There was a pattern. She'd marry widowers with children, isolate the kids, fake medical or psychological crises, gain control over their finances, and drain everything. Then she'd disappear before anyone caught on. But this time, Mom's lawyer had been watching. Mom had told Melissa to keep an eye on Dad if anything happened to her. And when Linda showed up and Dad remarried so fast, Melissa had started a file. They'd been waiting for enough evidence. As the officers led Linda out in handcuffs, she looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time. And she smiled. That same cold smile from the top of the stairs that night. You're smarter than the others, she said. But you'll never prove the stairs. That's just your word against mine. Dad broke down right there in the living room. He kept saying he was sorry, that he should have listened, that he'd failed me and Mom both. Some of his coworkers helped him sit down. My aunt tried to comfort him, but he kept crying, these awful broken sobs. I walked out with Grandma. Her car smelled like rose perfume and felt like safety. That night, I slept in my mom's old room at Grandma's house. The walls were still the soft yellow Mom had painted them in high school. There were photos on the dresser of Mom at different ages, smiling and whole. I cried for hours. Not just for what Linda had done, but for all the time I'd lost. For my mom who'd tried to protect me even after death. For the last 4 years of pain and loneliness. Grandma held me and told me stories about Mom. About how strong she'd been. About how she'd always said I had her spine, her unwillingness to break even when bent. She'd be so proud of you, Grandma whispered. You saved yourself, sweetheart. You survived and you fought back. The legal stuff took months. Melissa helped Grandma get emergency custody even though I was 18 by then. Linda was held without bail because she was a flight risk. The evidence against her was overwhelming. They found her previous victims through her old addresses and known aliases. A guy named Peter, who she'd collected disability payments for while he was out of state, tanking his credit and nearly getting him arrested for fraud. A girl named Kelly who'd been pushed downstairs just like me, then institutionalized while Linda cleaned out her college fund. The similarities were eerie. Linda had a playbook and she'd followed it perfectly each time. Until me. The trial was almost anticlimactic. With 4 victims testifying, with all of Melissa's documentation, with the recordings I'd made, Linda's lawyer advised her to take a plea deal. She got 10 years, eligible for parole in 7 if she behaved. It didn't feel like enough, but it was something. Grandma got me into proper medical treatment. Real doctors who actually listened when I described my pain. Physical therapy that helped instead of hurt. Slowly, over months, my back started to improve. Not perfect, but manageable. I could sit through a class without wanting to scream. I could sleep without waking up in agony. I enrolled in community college. Small steps. I was behind academically from the years of Linda's homeschooling, but I was determined. I made new friends who didn't know my story. I just told people I'd been sick and was recovering. They didn't need to know more. 6 months after Linda was sentenced, Dad called. His voice was shaking. Linda made bail on a technicality. Her lawyer found some procedural error. She's out pending appeal. She's not supposed to contact you, but he paused. She's been asking weird questions. About your recovery. About your doctors. About your physical therapy schedule. My stomach dropped. What kind of questions? Specific questions. Like she's planning something. I don't know. Maybe I'm paranoid. But after everything, he trailed off. I wasn't paranoid. I knew exactly what this meant. Linda wasn't done. The first weird thing happened 2 days later. I was leaving my morning psych class when I spotted someone sitting on a bench outside the building. Blonde hair. Designer purse. It took me a second to recognize her because she looked so different. Chloe. She was just staring at me, not trying to hide it. She looked thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes. Her usually perfect hair was unwashed and tangled. When our eyes met, she stood up and walked straight toward me. I froze. Students flowed around us like water around rocks. You ruined my mother's life, Chloe said. Her voice was flat, dead. Your mother ruined mine first. I kept my voice steady, even though my heart was hammering. She laughed. This awful, hollow sound. You have no idea what's coming. Then she just walked away. I stood there for a full minute, students bumping into me, before I could make my legs move. I should have reported it right then. Called campus security, told Grandma something. But I told myself she was just upset about her mom. That I was overreacting. That night, I found a note under my dorm room door. The handwriting was loopy and perfect, the same handwriting from all those birthday cards Linda used to make Chloe sign. It said, "You're an ungrateful liar who destroyed a good woman. This isn't over." I showed it to my roommate Emma. She glanced at it and shrugged. Probably just some random drama. You know how college is. But I knew. And the next morning, there was another note. This one had my class schedule written out. Building names. Times. Routes I took across campus. Someone was following me. I called Dad. He said Chloe was probably just processing her emotions and I should give her space. I called Grandma, but she was at her book club, so I went to campus security instead. The guy at the desk barely looked up from his phone. He was maybe 25, looked like an ex-football player who'd peaked in high school. He glanced at the notes, then at me. Is there an actual threat here? Because a schedule isn't really threatening. Someone is following me, documenting my movements. After my stepmother just got out of prison for fraud and abuse. He shrugged. Unless they're directly threatening violence, there's not much we can do. Come back if something concrete happens. I left feeling more vulnerable than when I'd arrived. Campus security wasn't going to help. The police couldn't do anything without a direct threat. I was on my own. The notes kept coming. One had a photo of me walking to the library, grainy but clearly me with my purple backpack and the slight limp I still had from my back injury. Another mentioned my physical therapy appointments, times and locations I'd never shared online. Chloe was everywhere. I'd catch glimpses of her blonde hair in my peripheral vision, and my heart would race. I started taking different routes to class, ducking into random buildings, doubling back to check if I was being followed. My friends noticed I was jumpy, but I didn't want to explain the whole Linda situation. How do you even start that conversation? Then Chloe escalated. She showed up at the campus coffee shop where I studied with my friend group. Melissa, Ethan, Jake, and I had claimed our usual table by the window. We were supposed to be reviewing for organic chemistry, but mostly we were procrastinating and arguing about the best Marvel movie. Chloe sat at the table right next to ours, close enough that we could hear every word. She pulled out her phone and started talking loudly. "I just don't understand people who lie about abuse," she said into her phone. Her voice carried across the whole coffee shop. "Like this girl I know, she was so jealous of her stepmother's real daughter that she made up these horrible stories. Said she was pushed downstairs when everyone knows she tried to hurt herself. Some people just can't handle when their parent finds happiness again." My friends all glanced at me. The coffee in my mouth turned sour. I grabbed my stuff and left, but the damage was done. The next day, Melissa pulled me aside after class. "Hey, so that girl from the coffee shop messaged me on Instagram." She showed me her phone. Chloe had sent her screenshots of old Facebook posts. Linda's posts from years ago, talking about what a difficult time she was having with her troubled stepdaughter. How I refused to accept her love. How she was just trying her best in an impossible situation. Of course, there were no posts about Linda making me scrub floors until my knees bled. No posts about her stealing my mail from my grandmother. No posts about her faking my suicide attempt. "She's saying you made everything up because you couldn't handle your dad remarrying," Melissa said carefully. I mean, what's the actual story here?" I tried to explain, but it sounded crazy even to me. Evil stepmother who faked everything and went to prison, but now her daughter is stalking me? It was like a bad Lifetime movie. Melissa nodded slowly, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Chloe had planted the seed. She was building a case against me, making me look unstable and untrustworthy, just like Linda had done years ago. The pattern was so familiar it made my skin crawl. I thought about calling the police again, but what would I say? That my stepsister was telling people I lied? They'd laugh me out of the station. They'd look at my history, the psychiatric evaluation from when I was 14, the troubled teen narrative Linda had built, and dismiss me just like everyone else had. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the hallway made me jump. I kept checking the locks on my door. Around 3 in the morning, I got up to look out the window. There was someone standing under the street light outside my dorm. Even from 4 floors up, I recognized Chloe's silhouette. She stood there for an hour, just watching my window. I couldn't look away. When I finally found the courage to check again, she was gone. But I knew she'd be back. The next morning, there was another note under my door. Just one line in that perfect loopy handwriting. "Mother sends her regards." My hands were shaking as I held the paper. Linda was out there somewhere, pulling strings, orchestrating everything through her daughter. Just like she'd always done. I called Grandma immediately. It was barely 6 in the morning, the sky outside still dark with just a hint of purple creeping along the horizon. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She answered on the second ring, instantly alert. She knew I wouldn't call this early unless something was seriously wrong. I told her everything. About Chloe. About the notes. About Linda's questions to Dad. The words tumbled out in a rush. Grandma went quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm hiring someone to look into this." "What do you mean?" "A private investigator. Someone who can figure out what Linda and Chloe are really up to." Within 2 hours, she'd already made the arrangements. The investigator's name was Wayne. He showed up at my dorm that afternoon looking exactly like someone's dad visiting campus. Gray hair cut short and neat, polo shirt tucked into khakis, comfortable walking shoes. He even carried a campus map like a confused parent. He knocked with a specific pattern Grandma had told me to expect. When I let him in, he immediately scanned my room, checking windows, the lock on my door, even the closet. "Walk me through everything," he said. His voice was calm, professional. I showed him all the notes I'd kept in a shoebox under my bed. He photographed each one carefully, adjusting the angle to avoid glare. He asked about my daily routine, my classes, my physical therapy appointments. He wrote everything down in a worn leather notebook. "Keep living normally, but stay alert," he said before leaving. "I'll handle the rest." He gave me a card with just a phone number, no name or business listed. That same day, I had physical therapy. The campus health center was a modern glass and brick building on the north side of campus. My therapist, Dennis, had been working with me for months to undo the damage from Linda's fall. Dennis was in his 40s with kind eyes and infinite patience. He was the first medical professional who actually listened when I described my pain, never dismissing it as being in my head. As I was leaving the session, still slightly sweaty and sore, I noticed Chloe in the parking lot. She was standing near a blue Honda, talking on her phone and taking pictures of the building. I ducked behind a car and texted Wayne immediately. "Already on it," he replied within seconds. The next few days were quiet. No new notes. No Chloe at her usual stalking spots. I started to relax a little, though I still checked over my shoulder constantly. Maybe Wayne had scared her off. I should have known better. Peace never lasted long when Linda was involved. Friday afternoon, I got a call from the health center. I was in my room reviewing anatomy notes when my phone rang. "We have an issue with your insurance," the receptionist said. "Someone called claiming to be you and tried to cancel your physical therapy coverage. We need you to come in person to verify your identity." My hands started shaking. I knew exactly who that someone was. I called Wayne. He told me to go to the appointment, but he'd be nearby. At the health center, the receptionist Beverly looked confused and frazzled. "The caller knew all your information. Your birthday, insurance ID number, even your social security number. The only reason we flagged it was the voice sounded different from yours." She played the recording. Chloe had tried to disguise her voice, making it older and more authoritative. She was asking about my treatment schedule, trying to get copies of my medical records sent to a P.O. box across town. Wayne appeared at the desk like he'd been there the whole time. He showed Beverly some kind of credentials and asked for a copy of the recording. She hesitated, then made him a copy on a USB drive. In the parking lot, Wayne told me this was bigger than just harassment. Someone's trying to access your medical benefits, possibly to file fraudulent claims or redirect payments. I need to dig deeper into Linda's past to see if this is part of a pattern. Can you stay with someone this weekend while I investigate? I drove to Grandma's house through winding country roads, checking my mirrors constantly for Chloe's car. The 2-hour drive felt like an eternity. When I finally pulled into the driveway, Grandma was waiting on the porch. She hugged me tight and led me inside. Her house smelled like cinnamon and safety. She'd made up Mom's old room for me with fresh lavender sheets. Being in those familiar yellow walls made me want to cry. "Wayne found something," she said. "It's worse than we thought." Wayne came by the next morning with a thick folder. He spread papers across the kitchen table, organizing them into neat piles. Linda had done this before, not just once, multiple times. The pattern was always the same. She'd marry someone with a sick or deceased spouse. She'd isolate their children through manipulation and sometimes violence. Then she'd become their medical proxy and drain their insurance benefits or trust funds. In one case, she'd collected disability payments for a stepson named Peter for 3 years after he'd moved out of state. He'd had no idea until the IRS came after him for fraud. His credit was destroyed. The second case was even worse. A girl named Kelly had been pushed downstairs just like me. The same kind of injury. The same gaslighting afterward. Linda had convinced everyone Kelly was suicidal, had even produced a fake diary with forged entries. Kelly had been put in a psychiatric facility for 2 months while Linda cleaned out her college fund. Wayne had tracked down both families. They'd been looking for Linda for years, comparing notes on online forums for fraud victims. "How does Chloe fit into all this?" Grandma asked, her voice sharp with anger. Wayne pulled out more papers, including foster care documents. "Chloe isn't Linda's biological daughter. She's another victim who developed Stockholm Syndrome. Her real parents died in a car accident when she was 8. Linda was her foster mother and groomed her into being an accomplice over a decade. Those weekend visits I'd thought were custody arrangements had actually been training sessions. Chloe had been taught to gather information, manipulate records, play the perfect daughter. She was 18 now, but completely under Linda's psychological control. Wayne showed us Chloe's old school records. A bright, happy child before Linda, then gradual decline afterward, and I felt sick. All those times I'd been jealous of Chloe, thinking she was the favored daughter. She'd been a prisoner too, just a different kind. Wayne had found evidence that Linda was using Chloe to access my disability benefits through forged forms and false claims. They'd already collected thousands of dollars over the past 6 months. Grandma slammed her hand on the table, making the coffee cups jump. "This ends now." Wayne had a plan. He'd contacted the other families. We needed to catch Linda in the act, get irrefutable proof she was directing Chloe. The problem was Linda was too smart to show her face. We needed to flip Chloe somehow. Make her see that Linda was using her too. IT sounded impossible. How do you deprogram someone who's been manipulated for 10 years? I went back to campus Monday with Wayne's assurance that someone would be watching. During lunch, I saw Chloe in the cafeteria sitting alone, picking at a salad. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes, and I made a decision Wayne probably wouldn't approve of. I grabbed my tray and sat down across from her. She looked up, startled. I know about Linda's other families, I said before she could leave. Peter and Kelly. About the years of trauma Linda caused. I know you're not her real daughter. That Linda took you from your real family. Chloe's hands started shaking. You don't know anything. I pulled out my phone and showed her the documents. Her foster care records. Her real parents' obituaries. The police report when Linda first got custody. Chloe stared at the screen like she was seeing a ghost. Then she started crying. Not delicate tears, but body-shaking sobs. People were staring, but I didn't care. Linda's using you just like she used me. When she's done, when the heat gets too much, she'll disappear and leave you to take the fall. Chloe kept shaking her head, but I could see the doubt creeping in. I gave her Wayne's number on a napkin and left her there crying. Wayne called me furious later. He'd seen the whole thing on security cameras. You took a huge risk. You could have ruined everything. She's a victim too, I said. She deserved a chance. 2 days passed with no word. Then Wednesday night, my phone rang from an unknown number. It was Chloe. Her voice was tiny, scared. Linda's been lying to me for years. I looked up Peter and Kelly. Everything you said was true. I want out, but I don't know how. Linda monitors everything I do. I told her to meet me at the campus church the next morning. I brought Wayne. Chloe showed up looking like she hadn't slept in days. She was clutching a backpack, like her life depended on it. When she saw Wayne, she almost ran. He's here to help, I said. You're not alone anymore. She sat down and started talking. Years of manipulation poured out. Linda had told her that her real parents had abandoned her, that nobody else would ever want her, that she owed Linda everything. Chloe pulled papers from her backpack. Bank statements showing fraudulent accounts. Forged documents with Linda's notes. Recordings on her phone of Linda coaching her. And, most importantly, evidence of where Linda was hiding. A rundown motel 2 towns over, room 237. She only contacted Chloe through burner phones. Wayne coordinated with the other families and their investigators. They'd all been looking for Linda for years. Now they knew exactly where she was, but we needed to be careful. If Linda got spooked, she'd run again. Wayne told Chloe she'd have to go back and act normal for one more day. Chloe looked terrified but agreed. That night, I couldn't focus on anything. I kept thinking about Chloe walking back into that motel room. What if Linda suspected something? I texted her, stay strong. You're not alone anymore. She sent back a single heart emoji. The next morning, Wayne called with the plan. The other families were driving in. They'd meet at the police station to present their evidence together. Chloe would get Linda to meet her at a restaurant, supposedly to collect more forged documents. The police would be waiting. I wanted to be there, but Wayne said absolutely not. It was too dangerous that I spent the morning pacing my dorm room. Finally, after 90 minutes that felt like hours, my phone buzzed. Wayne. Got her. I sank onto my bed and started crying. It was really over. Linda was in custody, or so I thought, because Linda had one more card to play. An hour later, Wayne called again. His voice was different. Tense. Linda's demanding to talk to you. She claims to have information about your mom's death. My whole body went cold. That's impossible. Mom died of cancer. Linda's insisting she has proof of something else. The detective thinks she's bluffing, but wanted you to decide. I drove to the police station with shaking hands. Wayne met me in the lobby with Detective Gray. They explained Linda would be behind glass. I could leave anytime. Linda looked smaller than I remembered. Orange jumpsuit. Hair flat and greasy. No makeup. When she saw me, she smiled. That same cold smile. You look good. Healthier. I didn't respond. She leaned forward. Your mother's cancer wasn't what killed her. Stop lying, I said. I'm done with your games. But she kept talking. She'd found Mom's medical records while going through Dad's files. There were inconsistencies in the treatment notes. Medications that didn't match her type of cancer. Linda pulled out a folder she'd somehow been allowed to keep. Inside were photocopies of medical documents with highlighted sections. Different doctors' signatures. Treatment plans that made no sense. I was planning to use this as leverage if you ever tried to expose me. But now everything's ruined anyway, so you might as well know the truth. Look at who benefited from your mom's death. Who got the life insurance payout. Who suddenly had no obstacles to marrying your dad. That was you, I said. She laughed. No. I came later. Someone else cleared the path first. Your dad's first girlfriend after your mom died. Beverly. She lasted 6 months before I showed up. I barely remembered Beverly. Just a vague impression of blonde hair and too much perfume. Beverly was a nurse at the hospital where your mom was treated. She had access to everything. After your mom died, Beverly tried to get your dad to marry her quickly. When he said it was too soon, she got desperate and sloppy. That's when I swooped in. Beverly left town shortly after. Linda had names, dates, shift schedules. She'd kept it all as insurance. Check the hospital record yourself. Look up Beverly's employment history. See when her shifts aligned with your mom's worst days. Track where Beverly went after leaving town. She did the same thing 2 more times in different states. I left that room feeling like the ground had shifted under me. Was it possible? Had mom been murdered? I called dad from a gas station parking lot. Told him everything Linda said. He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, Beverly always made me uncomfortable. Little things that didn't add up. How she knew details about our family she shouldn't have. How eager she was to help with your mom's care even before we started dating. We spent the next week investigating. Dad pulled strings at the hospital to get mom's complete records. Wayne helped track down Beverly's history. What we found made me sick. Beverly had worked at 3 hospitals where patients with terminal illnesses had died unexpectedly. Always wealthy patients with good insurance. She'd never been caught because she was careful, using medications that mimicked natural disease progression, except Linda had recognized a fellow predator. The police opened a new investigation, but Beverly had vanished years ago. Her trail went cold in Oregon where she'd worked under a different name. More mysterious deaths had followed her there. They put out alerts, but she'd probably changed her identity again. Meanwhile, Linda sat in jail, almost gleeful that she'd ruined one more life on her way down. Even locked up, she'd found a way to hurt me one last time. The other families Linda had scammed came to town for her hearing. Peter flew in from Colorado. Kelly drove up from Texas with her aunt. There were others too. A whole support group of Linda's victims. We met at a coffee shop near the courthouse. Everyone had similar experiences with different details. Linda had adapted her approach based on each family's weaknesses. Chloe showed up halfway through. She'd cut her hair short and dyed it brown, trying to look less like the girl Linda had created. She sat next to me and grabbed my hand under the table. We didn't need to talk. We both understood. The hearing itself was anticlimactic. Linda pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and assault. With all the evidence from multiple states, her lawyer advised against fighting it. She got 15 years, eligible for parole in TN. IT didn't feel like enough. But at least she couldn't hurt anyone else for a while. Dad came to the hearing, sitting in the back row. He looked older, defeated. He'd believed Linda's lies about me for so long. That guilt would never fully go away. After the hearing, Chloe and I went for coffee. Real coffee, not the courthouse machine stuff. She told me she was starting therapy, trying to undo years of Linda's programming. She'd enrolled in community college, planning to become a social worker. She wanted to help kids in foster care. That I told her about my plans for medical school. How I wanted to specialize in pain management, help people whose pain was dismissed like mine had been. We stayed in touch after that. Not close friends exactly, but bonded by shared trauma. She'd text me updates. I'd share my wins. We were both rebuilding from the ground up. 6 months after Linda's arrest, Detective Gray called. They'd found Beverly. She'd been working at a nursing home in Washington under another fake identity. More suspicious deaths had followed her. They arrested her based on the pattern. She was facing multiple murder charges across 4 states. Mom's case would be part of it. I went to Beverly's trial with Dad. Seeing her in person was surreal. She looked so normal. Like someone's aunt. Not like someone who'd killed my mother. The prosecution laid out the pattern of deaths. The financial motives. The access she'd had. Linda testified by video link from prison, clearly enjoying her moment in the spotlight. The jury found Beverly guilty on 8 counts. Life without parole. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt something shift. Not closure exactly, but maybe the beginning of it. Mom was still gone. I'd still suffered years of abuse. But the truth was out now. Both monsters were behind bars. I could stop looking over my shoulder. I could just be a normal college student worried about exams instead of survival. I graduated last month with my bachelor's degree. Dad, Grandma, and Chloe came to the ceremony. Wayne sent a card saying he was proud of me. I'm starting medical school in the fall. Finally pursuing the dream Linda tried to steal. I still have bad days. Sometimes my back acts up, and I remember those nights crying on the basement floor. Sometimes I have nightmares about stairs, but I also have good days now. Days where I forget to be afraid. Days where I can just exist without watching for threats. Linda gets out eventually. 10 years, if she behaves. But I'll be ready. I'm not that scared teenager anymore. I have support, evidence, and the knowledge that I survived her once. She has no power over me now. Same with Beverly, rotting in her cell. They're just bad chapters in my story. Not the whole book. Did I get to write the rest myself? Last week I found a photo from that awful birthday party. There I was with a frozen smile while Linda gave her performance. But now I could see what I'd missed then. In the background was Sarah looking concerned. Dad checking his phone. Relatives looking uncomfortable with Linda's showed. I wasn't as alone as I'd thought. People had seen something was wrong. That photo used to make me angry. Now it just makes me grateful for how far I've come. Chloe called yesterday. She's graduating with her associate's degree and got accepted to a 4-year program. She's dating someone nice who knows her whole story and doesn't care.
She sounds happy.
Really happy. We made plans to get coffee when she's in town. Not to talk about Linda or the past. Just to catch up like normal people do, because that's what we are now. Normal people who survived something awful and came out the other side. Damaged maybe, but not broken.
Alright, that's it for today. See you in the next one.